Late at night, in this cold sterility of the emergency room, the steady beep of the monitor beside her swollen belly trembled like a final warning. Charlotte Langston, wife of tech magnate Marcus Langston, was suddenly struck by premature labor, and in the blink of an eye, she discovered he had fathered a child with Olivia Reed, his calculating mistress. How would she confront this shattering betrayal? Join us as we follow her courageous journey from devastation to triumph, where a mother's love becomes the guiding light through the darkest hours. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. In those first months, Charlotte's life shone like a novel she had never dared to imagine. The morning sun streamed through the windows, filling the room with warmth each time she blinked awake, her serene face unfolding like a blossom greeting the day. Marcus, with his tall frame, softly curled brown hair, and the deep, confident gaze of a successful entrepreneur, was always the first to rest a hand on her shoulder, whispering sweet reassurances that made her heart race. Charlotte savored every breath he drew as he gently stroked her hair, as though he were kindling warmth in a vast expanse of her newly opened soul. Every excursion they took held an undercurrent of understated romance. The pristine white yacht gliding across the azure waters of the Mexican Bay, waves lapping the hull like a natural love song, laced with an indescribable salt-kissed breeze. Charlotte perched at the rail, her floral dress fluttering in the wind, eyes closed as Marcus led her through a slow dance beneath the amber glow of sunset. The blazing orb dipped below the horizon, painting their clasped hands in gold, as if declaring that the line between reality and dream had forever blurred. In those tranquil days, the book editor, accustomed to the quiet rhythm of inked pages and the warm glow of her desk lamp, discovered herself stepping beyond her safe harbor. Manuscripts and the scent of fresh type seemed pale beside the lavish experiences Marcus bestowed upon her. She recalled the first time he surprised her with a colossal bouquet of white orchids, each petal as soft as a promise never to part. Charlotte smiled through her tears as she hid her hand to caress the blooms, their heady fragrance curling into her skin, teaching her that love could be preserved in every sense. When Marcus unexpectedly knelt before her at the roaring edge of Iguazu Falls, where torrents crashed into the abyss and mist soared into the sky, Charlotte was swept away by awe. The diamond ring glinted on his outstretched hand, and the thunderous waters seemed to cheer on this beacon of hope. She nodded through tears of joy, her heart fracturing into 1,000 pieces, only to reassemble into a vow of lifelong devotion. The vision of her in a flowing white gown, dancing in the fine spray, her eyes brimming with happiness, became the first indelible memory they engraved on their journey together. After their simple ceremony at City Hall, doubt crept in. Charlotte questioned whether she deserved such dazzling privilege. Yet Marcus never allowed her to wrestle with uncertainty alone. He shepherded her through Manhattan's winding lanes, into cozy cafes where they consecrated their love over steaming lattes. She listened intently to the cadence of his heartbeat as he confided his dream of founding a charity in the wake of his tech triumph. The wistful light in his eyes, brimming with faith in a brighter tomorrow, made her feel safer than any fortress could. That radiant happiness seeped into every fiber of Charlotte's being, prompting daydreams of a snug, laughter-filled home. She lost herself in the memory of one sunlit afternoon when Marcus relinquished the wheel on the California highway so she could press the accelerator, wind whipping her hair, his proud arm around her. She had laughed freely, feeling like the heroine of her own life, as if the whole world existed to honor their love. Still, in moments of seeming perfection, Charlotte sensed an undercurrent of emptiness. As Marcus plunged deeper into his groundbreaking AI project, late-night meetings and impromptu business trips carved an invisible gulf between them. She returned to their apartment to the hum of the air conditioner and the hush of solitude, broken only by the tick of the wall clock. She longed for his warm embrace, yet Marcus could manage only a brief, reassuring text on her phone. During those days, her work as an editor lost its spark. The words on the page felt hollow. Charlotte sat at her desk, fingertips tracing the cover of her favorite book as she recalled the Marcus of old. The man who met her gaze and pledged, "I'll always be by your side." Perhaps, she mused, true love does not wilt on its own. Perhaps it simply needs daily tending. Still, hope lingered. She and Marcus had once touched the very essence of each other, shared that sweetness. Like clouds dissolving after a storm, Charlotte's faith remained steadfast, untarnished. She believed that if two hearts aimed for the same beacon, no tempest could prevail. That conviction propelled her forward, even when the path no longer lay strewn with rose petals. In the depths of her being, she longed for the moment when Marcus would look up from his stream of impersonal emails and truly see her, his wife, waiting with unwavering love. In the early days of her happiness, Charlotte's world began to tinge with anxiety as Marcus raced between one meeting and another, chasing the next big project. The messages he sent her now fluttered by like scraps of paper, disappearing in the ceaseless rush of a city that never sleeps. Charlotte woke in the dead of night to pale moonlight filtering through the curtains, her heart sinking as she unlocked her phone to read the cold initials, ML, at the end of an email. "Sending you the update. Don't worry, I'll be home soon." The words were concise, with no inquiry after her well-being, no tender reassurance. And in that moment, her heart clenched at the void left behind. A slate-gray glow of moonlight washed over their bedroom, illuminating the crumpled jacket Marcus had tossed on the bed after a high-pressure meeting. Charlotte curled herself into the headboard, clutching a pillow, lost in thought. She recalled the first time Marcus had run to embrace her after a photo shoot for a lifestyle magazine, his warm smile etching creases at the corners of his eyes, his hand resting on her waist like a silent vow. Now, he pressed only a fleeting kiss to her forehead before vanishing once more into the demands of his work, leaving Charlotte stranded in a widening night. This year's birthday passed in hushed solitude. The teal dress she had chosen lay untouched in the closet. The happy birthday cake perched on the table felt like mere scenery for an evening marked by absence. She sat opposite the empty chair where Marcus should have been, watching the candle flicker. The flame burned steadily, yet she felt frozen in place. A phone vibrated on the tabletop, an event reminder. Charlotte opened it in a daze and read, "Strategic Partnership Launch with Olivia Reed, 8:00 p.m., Soleil Tower Conference Hall." Each word struck her heart like a blade. Olivia Reed, that name planted a seed of doubt deep in Charlotte's soul. Olivia, with her statuesque figure and the fierce ambition of a powerhouse in the entertainment industry. Charlotte had heard rumors of her seductive smile and predatory gaze, always steering the conversation on her own terms. How could someone as ordinary as a book editor fit into the opulent orbit that Marcus and Olivia shared? A gust of wind rattled the fashion magazines on the table. Charlotte rose from the plush chair and moved toward the window, her hand trembling as she drew back the blinds. In the distance, Soleil Tower shimmered against the night sky, the setting for the year's most prestigious gala, where top entrepreneurs and artists would rub shoulders. Flashing spotlights stitched patterns of color across the facade, sketching the silhouette of Olivia Reed, an incandescent figure on a grand stage, poised to welcome Marcus at her side. Charlotte inhaled deeply, catching a hint of vanilla from a scented candle on her vanity. The soft fragrance could not banish the chill in her chest. She wondered how many nights Marcus had consoled her with more than a fleeting kiss, before darting away. Then she recalled the intermittent click of her office door, his phone's insistent ring, the computer screen pulsing with incoming video call notifications, the sharp zip of a suitcase being closed, signals of yet another urgent trip. That night, sleep eluded Charlotte. She trudged to the kitchen, poured herself a mug of warm milk, and perched on a stool, eyes fixed on the ticking clock. Each second echoed through the silent house, a reminder that time slipped by no matter how fiercely she held on. She pictured Marcus nodding as he led her through Central Park's emerald pathways, where trees mirrored themselves in the tranquil lake, his arms enveloping her in a tight embrace as he sighed. "You mean everything to me." Once sweet words now felt like a faded photograph, their color washed away by time. Finally, Charlotte walked to the empty lot in front of the gleaming skyscraper that bore Marcus's ambitions. Soleil Tower rose in white marble, its steps shimmering under golden lights. She pinned her hair up in a neat bun, slipped into a dark coat, and entered the opulent lobby. Event staff were fine-tuning the backdrop displaying the project logo. One handed Charlotte a guest badge labeled Olivia Reed, partner, while hers simply read Mrs. Langston. A wave of emptiness crashed over her as she realized that Olivia's badge was vibrantly colored, an unspoken privilege granted without question. For a moment, Charlotte halted, jealousy simmering beneath her calm exterior. She felt like an extra in the drama that Marcus and Olivia had scripted. Soft lounge music drifted through the hall, punctuated by the clink of glasses and discreet laughter. Each step Olivia took across the plush carpet echoed Charlotte's pain. She could not turn and flee. Her heart still held the memory of a love once shared too deeply to abandon so easily. Charlotte squared her shoulders, took another steadying breath, and pressed forward. She knew she had to confront this, though her heart thundered with the question, can this woman truly claim all of his devotion? She did not seek to cast blame, but to reclaim her footing for the road ahead, for the little angel waiting inside her for tenderness and care. Her steps slowed as she approached the marble hallway, her gaze hunting for Marcus amidst the crowd. Then she saw him, tuxedo crisp and commanding, yet his face ashen, his eyes skimming past her like a breeze through a half-open window. Charlotte offered a faint, sorrowful smile. She understood that the journey unfolding before her would be as bitter as it was sweet. Tonight, she would witness the bond between Marcus and Olivia laid bare, and for the first time, she felt the profound solitude of a mother alone in a sea of strangers. And in that instant, Charlotte resolved, no matter the outcome, she would rise from this darkness to protect the future of her own and the tiny soul waiting to be born. With a final blink to steady her racing heart, Charlotte closed her eyes, inhaled one unwavering breath, and stepped into the glow of the grand hall. The storm awaited, and she was ready to meet it head-on. Night descended like a velvet black blanket draped over the hospital's corrugated roof. Only the whispering wind sighed through the gaps in the leaves. Charlotte hunched forward, wrapping her arms around her swollen belly, as though she held an entire fragile world within. She stepped slowly beneath the shadowed trees, where yellow and brittle leaves quivered before drifting down in a soft cascade. Inside her, anxiety swarmed like a shattered beehive. Was her tiny child safe? Did she possess the courage to endure a husband who seemed forever distant? A muted golden glow spilled through the hallway window, painting dancing patches of light and shadow on the polished tile. Yet Charlotte could find no warmth except in the small hospital garden, her sanctuary of calm contemplation. Her fingers brushed a technology magazine that the breeze had snatched from a bench. She followed the blurred headline on its cover. Marcus Langston and Olivia Reed to unveil mega project. Each word stabbed her heart like a needle, cracking the fragile shell of trust she had left. The night wind turned colder, tugging at the gossamer coat Charlotte had wrapped around her shoulders. She felt every rapid, constricting breath, each throbbing contraction that threatened to shatter her ribs. Before she could steady herself, the first contraction pounded through her, weakening her knees until she collapsed onto the frigid ground. Her trembling hands reached out, fingertips numbed with cold seeking purchase on the stone bench, but her strength failed under the weight of her unborn child. Shouts of alarm echoed down the path, and in a flash, nurses in white appeared like angels against the darkening sky. They scooped Charlotte into their arms, hastening her along the slick corridor as heels clattered against metal railings, a sound that cut through the night. The automatic doors of the emergency room sped open to reveal a harsh strip of fluorescent light sweeping across Charlotte's sweat-damp face. Beads of sweat mixed with worry trickled down her porcelain-like arm. They laid her on a gurney, her canvas slip-ons limp against the stretcher's frame. Doctors and nurses surrounded her, IV lines and heart monitor leads snaking to her arm, machines beeping their steady reminder. You must hold on. There is still life within you that needs its mother. She closed her eyes, her heart quivering, her breath hitching. In the haze of panic, she heard the faint whoosh of the door sliding open, hurried footsteps drawing near. Marcus's silhouette passed the window, his ashen face pressed against the glass. His eyes flickered from shock to anguish, then caught the sheen of sweat on her forehead. His hand trembled as he gripped the edge of her sheet. Charlotte opened her eyes and managed a weak smile, nodding as if to say, "You've made it in time." Yet in that instant, her lips parted with a dry little gasp, yearning for a comforting word, an embrace to chase away the fear, an earnest glance promising, "I will never leave." Instead, Marcus met her gaze with hollow eyes, then leaned toward a nurse. "Sorry. She needs time." He slipped away, shoulders crooked in his fine suit, the jangle of his phone's relentless ringtone echoing in his pocket. The shock reverberated through Charlotte more fiercely than any contraction. He left her, his pregnant wife, to answer someone else's call? A clear yet tremulous voice pierced the silence. "Honey, our first son is in severe heat shock. The doctors say they must lower his body temperature immediately." Charlotte listened as if suspended in emptiness. Our first son. Those words no longer addressed her, no longer my wife, or my love. She was a stranger at a crossroads. Night fractured into two realms. On one side, the distant wail of sirens and the red flashing lights reflected on her face. On the other, Marcus's retreating figure weaving through the hallway, his coat swaying like a dim lantern in the breeze. Charlotte felt heat surge to her ears, her own heartbeat tolling like a shattered prayer. Her vision blurred, seeing only the thin curtain quivering in the draft, obscuring the sight of her kneeling in the emergency room. Then, a gentle hand rested on her shoulder. One of the nurses whispered, "Stay calm. We will care for both you and your baby." Charlotte exhaled, tears mingling with sweat and the pungent scent of antiseptic. In her mind, she thought, "Does our son need me more than you do? And my daughter within me fights every breath to be born." She vowed to steel herself, for there could be no room for weakness. Her maternal instinct roared alive, fiercer than ever. As the machines continued their unceasing beeps, Charlotte gave a small nod, swallowing back a sob. Her cracked lips curved into a determined smile, as if to mend her fractured heart with a semblance of peace. Neon lights cast a hushed glow over the sterile enclosure, forming a phantom veil around her, softening the lines of worry on her brow. Charlotte knew she must be strong, not just for herself, but for two fragile lives depending on her. Throughout that hushed night, the hospital grew silent, save for the muffled steps of a patrolling orderly. Charlotte bowed her head, pressing a hand to the nurse's tunic, feeling the gentle pulse through the heart monitor strip. She whispered to herself, "I will not break, no matter where Marcus is." She pictured the future, a little boy braving the chills of induced hypothermia, a baby girl preparing to slip into the world, and herself, with a heart once shattered but never defeated, serving as a guiding lighthouse for these two nascent souls. Beyond the window, the city's night sky twinkled with distant lights, as if bearing witness to a woman's struggle between solitude and hope. A cold night for a mother's abandoned son fighting fever, yet also a night for an unborn daughter craving her mother's warm embrace. And Charlotte, amid her own physical agony and the sting of betrayal, stood firm, dedicating her final breaths to sustain these two lives, with a mother's fierce love and the unwavering belief that beyond every storm, dawn awaits in all its brilliance. When Charlotte opened her eyes again, the world seemed to hold its breath for a moment. The emergency room glowed cold under stark white lights, but the first thing she noticed were the two incubators side by side at the foot of her bed. A soft pink glow from within each bassinet illuminated the delicate skin of two tiny lives not yet given a name. She shivered, her heart constricting as she remembered every pang that had led to this moment. In the left incubator, the baby girl, her little princess, lay in peaceful slumber, her eyelids fluttering in dreamlike warmth. Once in a while she would startle, her tiny feet kicking the still air. To the right, the baby boy, her little prince, was curled beneath a thin blanket, his face more drawn than his sister's, as though he had already endured months of hardship before arriving prematurely. The name Langston Jr., printed atop the file strapped above his incubator, struck Charlotte like a dagger. She bolted upright, reaching out to touch the glass barrier, only to draw back in tremulous retreat, an invisible chasm that not even a millimeter could bridge. Her gaze locked on the navy blue chart lying on the clipboard, a neat slanted script penned by Marcus himself. Biological child of Olivia Reed. Those words trembled her soul, evoking a silent anguish. Charlotte felt every vein in her body chill, and then shatter into 1,000 fragments. She exhaled a sharp breath, and the first tear rolled down her cheek, mingling with months of whispered fear. That this child, not of her blood, might be loved and accepted more readily than her own. Charlotte's posture collapsed inward. She bowed her head, clutching at the hospital gown, shoulders quivering in quiet torment. Prominent veins rose on her wrists as she squeezed her own hand to rein in the tumult of emotions. Marcus, the husband she had once adored with every fiber of her being, now stood in her mind as a stranger, the father of a child not born of her womb. She could scarcely believe her eyes. She recalled the warmth of Marcus's initial embrace, the whispered promise, "Soon we will have our perfect family." That vow had vanished in an instant, leaving behind an emptiness no balm could soothe. In that instant, the glare of the emergency room lights pricked her eyes. She blinked rapidly, surveying her surroundings. A neonatal nurse adjusted the temperature setting on one incubator, her serious features etched with concern. A bead of cold sweat trickled down Charlotte's temple. She drew in a steadying breath, gripping the edge of her bed to reclaim composure. Her chest pulsed, a painful rhythm caught between joy and despair. Then memories of her pregnancy flooded in. The relentless nausea, the sleepless nights listening for her baby's heartbeat on the monitor, the gentle care she lavished on her belly beneath muted moonlight. She had envisioned only one cry at birth, that of her little girl, only to discover she would share this moment with another life of different blood. Yet her maternal instinct roared to life, pushing aside every shred of resentment and fury. Charlotte knew in her heart that only she could protect these two fragile souls. For a fleeting moment, she pictured their future. The little girl growing alongside her baby brother, two stars orbiting in a sky she alone had mapped. She would nurture each child, feeding them every drop of sweet mother's milk, cherishing every tiny gesture so that both would feel the warmth of her love. Whether Marcus stood by her side or not, she vowed never to leave either child to face the world's coldness alone. Charlotte lifted her eyes to the window pane opposite her bed, where the hallway light cast a pale line across the tiled floor. Outside, dawn had begun to tint the sky, a promise of new beginnings. She understood that a new day awaited not only for herself, but for the two precious lives still drifting between sleep and waking. She imagined her daughter's wide-eyed wonder upon meeting her mother for the first time, and her son's tentative gaze when he, too, would be cradled in her arms. And she, in her singular role, would be both shield and guide. Tears still traced paths down her cheeks, but Charlotte refused to collapse into despair. She closed her eyes and absorbed every sensation, 4 hands intertwined within her heart, hers, Marcus's, and the two small hearts she now carried in her soul. She whispered to herself, "No matter whom he chooses to stand beside, no matter the world's judgments, I will raise these two lives with all the love they deserve." That promise echoed within her, powerful enough to mend every crack in her fractured faith. The heart monitor resumed its steady beeping, reminding Charlotte that life's pulse would continue even as her own world swayed. She exhaled gently, letting each breath lengthen until calm settled in. She brushed aside the small curtain at her bedside, studying the babies beneath the warm glow, each fine hair, each tiny finger, beckoning her maternal devotion. In that moment, she recognized a strength she thought had been lost, the resolve of a mother, unwavering and complete. A fleeting peace engulfed her, as if granting her a moment to feel the weight of the promise she was about to fulfill. Charlotte managed a tender, weary smile, a smile laced with the salt of tears and the bite of sorrow, yet brimming with a mother's boundless love. She vowed that when the sun rose fully, she would step through the doors of this emergency room clutching her two little angels, bearing hope for a family unlike any other but whole in its unity. And whatever trials lay ahead, she, Charlotte Langston, would stand as their steadfast lighthouse, her love and determination unshakable. 1 week later, within the resplendent grandeur of the Soleil Conference Center's ballroom, golden lights gleamed like silken ribbons awakening every sense. The hall had been adorned with a long scarlet carpet, ivory velvet chairs lined in precise rows, and each round table crowned with bouquets of fresh white roses. Organizers and distinguished guests, from high-powered entrepreneurs to celebrated entertainers, were dressed in elegant attire, their faces alight with anticipation. Charlotte's own heartbeat seemed to synchronize with the charged atmosphere. She silently wondered, would the moment of truth shatter the glamorous facade that had shielded her life? The announcement of her name boomed through the warm-toned speakers, and Charlotte emerged from the wings, her pregnant figure embraced by a pastel-pink evening gown whose skirt flared lightly, as though to conceal her inner turmoil. Each measured step she took across the red carpet caused crystal beads on her necklace to catch the light, glinting like tears poised but unshed. A wave of vulnerability washed over her, and yet her eyes, steeled by determination, lifted, connecting directly with the kaleidoscopic faces of the audience. As she ascended the stage, the echo of guests' stately footsteps and the soft rap of the auctioneer's gavel played behind her, like a dramatic overture. She paused at the center of the spotlight, gently retrieving the microphone from the MC's stand. For a heartbeat, the room fell silent. Every other sound gave way to the quiet power of her breath. The tension stretched taut, as though a violin string drawn tight, poised to erupt with an electrifying melody. Charlotte began, her voice clear yet steely. "Before we commence this evening's auction, I have an important truth to share." Her words flew like arrows into the audience's hearts, redirecting hundreds of gazes toward her. The gavel's rap stopped mid-air. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. The spotlight swept across Charlotte's face, illuminating a bead of sweat on her brow, proof of nights spent sleepless, tears carefully concealed. She raised a hand, gesturing to the huge LED screen behind her, and proceeded with firm conviction. A series of images flickered on, the incriminating emails between Olivia and her advisors plotting a fake pregnancy to ensnare Marcus. Then a cascade of text messages, an audio clip of Olivia promising Marcus a perfect future family, followed by forged medical documents, manipulated embryo reports, and altered sonograms. Each slide, each recording flashed like documentary footage, igniting a storm of emotion. The crowd erupted into murmurs, pens scratched in notebooks, smartphones lifted to capture the revelation. Many eyes glistened with shock, some narrowed in suspicion, others welled with sympathy. In the front row, socialites turned away, clutching handkerchiefs, A few businessmen curled their lips in wry amusement. Only Olivia Reed, standing solemnly beside Marcus, turned ghostly pale, her eyes widening until the stage lights revealed every red vein. She staggered backward, her sequined gown shimmering like a wounded shell, her gaze glazed with disbelief. Charlotte inhaled deeply, feeling each muscle in her neck tighten, then spoke again in a calm yet unyielding tone. Tonight's event was meant to celebrate love and charity. But if we raise funds on a foundation of deceit, then the true value of the heart we honor becomes nothing more than a con. Her eyes swept the audience, feeding her own courage. Under the glare, tears sparkled on her cheeks like pearls, but Charlotte would not allow them to fall. She held her gaze bright with the power of truth. As the screen displayed the manipulated embryo image once more, a collective sigh echoed through the hall, heavy and remorseful. Marcus, co-founder of this charity and her husband, stood motionless behind Olivia, his face a portrait of confusion and regret. His expensive tuxedo suddenly looked too small for the weight of guilt he now bore, forced to watch his pregnant wife endure labor alone while he had been duped by Olivia's lies. The screen finally shifted back to the Golden Heart Foundation's logo, but no longer could that emblem mask the collapse of its facade. The murmur swelled into a wave that engulfed Olivia, stripping away the arrogance she once wore like armor. She shivered, her eyes reflecting the staccato bursts of camera flashes. The carefully crafted perfection she had guarded so fiercely now lay scattered like fragile petals in a hurricane of reality. Without uttering another word, Charlotte set the microphone on the podium. She inclined her head in a respectful nod to the audience, her eyes still fixed on Olivia, the hidden rival in her once sacred home. Charlotte's revelation had rung a bell of awakening in every heart present. Wealth and prestige could never outweigh the worth of honesty. As she stepped off the stage, the applause rose, not in celebration, but in the shedding of a mask, and in greeting a new beginning for the charity and for her own heart. And beneath the rapid strobing of the hall's lights, Charlotte allowed herself a small, steadfast smile, subtle yet unwavering. In that instant, she had sown the seed of truth in the souls of those gathered, affirming that faith and justice must remain the highest cause any foundation upholds. The climax shattered in a suspended moment beneath the ballroom lights. Marcus seemed lost in a storm of emotions, every muscle in his face twitching as he hurried toward Charlotte. In his chaotic gaze, veiled shame and anger intertwined, stood the image of a husband finally recognizing the severity of his mistake. Hesitantly, he laid a trembling hand on her shoulder, then abruptly swept her into his arms, as though only that embrace could mend the fracture in her heart. An apology caught in Marcus's throat, his voice cracking yet infused with genuine contrition. I'm sorry. I've hurt you, shattered your trust. Tears welled in his eyes, tracing paths down his angular cheekbones, mingling with the crystal reflections dancing overhead. In that instant, every soft ahem as he fought back sobs echoed through the hushed audience, silencing them with raw emotion. But Charlotte would not crumble. She felt each rapid breath, her heart no longer broken but stronger than ever. The swell of her belly reminded her of two fragile lives depending on her. Gently, she withdrew Marcus's hand, still cradling her abdomen, her face marked by steely resolve softened with tenderness. Her steady gaze shone like a lighthouse in a tempest, illuminating the path ahead despite the storm raging around them. She inhaled deeply, her pastel pink gown rustling against her vibrant, slender frame. The murmurs and gasps from below stilled to a low chorus of sighs and stifled sobs. Charlotte lifted her chin, eyes glistening in the light, and turned toward the two incubators positioned side by side on stage. On one side lay the baby girl, her little princess, in gentle slumber under a rosy glow. On the other, the baby boy, Prince Langston Jr., curled in his thin blanket, each fragile heartbeat monitored with care. Her voice rang out, warm yet unwavering. You must take responsibility for our son, and I will care for our daughter." Each word fell like a pearl against the wooden podium, transforming the space into something sacred. "Even if we cannot remain together, we are still a family. For the sake of our children's future, we must stand united, despite our wounds and conflicts." In Marcus's eyes, a flicker of hope appeared, laced with confusion. He nodded slowly. After days lost in work and deceit, he finally recognized the duty he could not deny. The microphone trembled lightly in Charlotte's hand as she completed her declaration. A long, reverent silence followed, giving everyone time to absorb her truth. Cameras swept through the room, capturing the moment this courageous mother stood firm amidst the tempest. Her expectant figure a testament to sacrifice and boundless love. Below, many dabbed away tears. Socialites in the front row hastily wiped their eyes, while seasoned journalists kept their lenses trained on Charlotte, portraying a woman both vulnerable and indomitable. The stage lay in peaceful suspension, as if awaiting the pulse of life to resume. Flashbulbs flickered, reflecting Charlotte's teary lashes and her resolute smile. Those soft glimmers seemed to convey, no matter how fierce the storm, a mother can still uphold an entire sky of hope for her two little angels. After a moment's quiet, gentle applause arose, from gratitude, not celebration, for the courage and sacred love she embodied. Beneath the strobing lights, Charlotte offered a soft, steadfast bow. Her smile, sweet and bittersweet, was whole in its conviction. Carl, the event chair, stepped onto the stage and nodded in approval. He presented Charlotte with a bouquet of white roses, symbols of purity and hope. Their soft petals brushed her palm like a benediction, renewing her strength for the journey ahead. Marcus approached and bent to place a hand on her shoulder. He whispered, "Thank you for giving me a chance to make amends. I will never leave you or our daughter alone." His sincerity brought tears to Charlotte's eyes. She offered no words in return, but pressed one hand gently into his, a silent promise that, though wounds remained, love would guide them through. Cameras continued their sweeping motion. Guests rose to applaud in a symphony of empathy. From distinguished patrons to volunteer staff, everyone grasped that this was more than an auction. It was living proof of truth's power, of courage, and of a mother's love. In that instant, Charlotte transcended the role of a lone mother-to-be. She became a symbol of faith and hope. In every heart, the image of her standing tall on stage, eyes sharp yet tender, would be etched as an emblem of great love. As the lights dimmed to a soft violet glow, marking the passage from night to dawn, the gentle echo of footsteps signaled Charlotte and Marcus walking side by side. Though no longer a conventional couple, they remained twin pillars for the two precious lives they had brought into the world. Once more, in the profound silence that followed, Charlotte whispered in her heart, "No matter life's trials, I will not let my children wander in darkness." And with that, the final stage light blinked out, leaving behind the fragile light of a new moon, small yet luminous enough to guide lost souls home. From the moment the storm passed, Charlotte Langston was no longer the fragile woman drowning in her past. She rose from the ashes of her shattered faith, determined to transform her pain into strength to shelter those delicate lives. The idea for the Two Moons Neonatal Care Foundation came to her on a dawn morning, when dew still clung to the leaves in the hospital garden, the very place where her two little angels had been born and fought for life each day. Two moons served as a reminder that, no matter how many fears or losses we endure, there are always two guiding lights, a mother's love and faith in the future. Her chosen path was far from easy. Charlotte faced the pressure of running a large charity while balancing her own health and the needs of her twin infants. She woke at first light, her hands still chilled from fitful sleep. Yet the sight of her babies gently breathing in their incubators banished every ounce of fatigue. Her heart brimmed with conviction. Each step she took today could mean life for premature infants and hope for single mothers adrift in the currents of life. On the foundation's opening day, Charlotte appeared in a cream blazer, her hair swept into a tidy low bun, her gaze resolute. The event hall was packed with guests, from philanthropists and medical experts to families who had benefited from the foundation's support. As Charlotte shared her story, the room fell silent. Every word she spoke hit like a blade, exposing the harsh reality many avoided. Prematurity is not only a medical ordeal, but also a brutal mental battle for both mother and child. Then she smiled gently and revealed the foundation's vision. We do more than save lives. We restore hope to mothers who thought they might never rise again. In its first year, the foundation successfully funded more than 10 neonatal units in community hospitals and provided hundreds of single mothers with free psychological counseling and specialized nutritional care. Charlotte personally visited each hospital, cradling infants as if they were her own, whispering words of encouragement. You will grow strong. You will triumph. Those images quietly spread across social media, moving thousands to contribute what they could. They called Charlotte the mother of small miracles. Yet the journey was not without loneliness. Late at night, after the office lights went dark, Charlotte sat alone at her desk, buried in files, budget figures, sponsor lists. She silently wondered, do I have the strength to carry this burden? Will today's decisions truly benefit these families? Doubt sometimes crept in, robbing her of sleep. But the memory of Marcus, the father of her twins, by her side at a fundraising event, his hand on her shoulder offering silent reassurance, gave her the anchor she needed to keep moving forward. The pinnacle of their campaign came with the Third Moon Gala, the foundation's largest fundraiser 2 years running. The stage was set amid a lake aglow with lights, evoking 2 moons reflected in a night sky, where donors stood on either shore exchanging hope. Charlotte stood beneath crystal spotlights, listening to the heartbreaking yet resilient tales of mothers she had helped. When she stepped forward to share the lesson drawn from her own life, every gaze turned to her, every heart in unison. Love is never just the romance of first sparks. It is the power that rises from loss, the fire that warms frozen hearts. Through this journey, Charlotte realized that the greatest value lay not in dollars raised, but in the community of compassion and empathy built. Each gratitude letter, every message of thanks from mothers who had teetered on the brink, fueled her determination. Whenever I feel weak, I only need to remember the little lives waiting for me. I am not just the mother of my 2 angels, but of hundreds of tiny, valiant souls, she wrote in her journal at day's end. After each event, Charlotte would slip behind the stage and gaze at the night sky through the window. The 2 artificial moons still shone brightly. She wondered what challenges lay ahead, but her awakened maternal heart no longer feared. She opened her phone and reread viewer comments on the Gala video, stories of loss and newfound hope. She smiled, knowing she was not alone. And Charlotte Langston's story is far from over. She is planning to expand the foundation into more cities, collaborate with international organizations to elevate neonatal care standards, and develop training programs for nurses and counselors specializing in postnatal mother-infant support. The steps ahead will be woven from sweat and tears, smiles and sorrows, but one thing remains certain. Charlotte will carry 2 moons to every corner where single mothers and their precious angels need a miracle. Lesson learned. Love is measured not only by golden moments but forged through trials, pain, and forgiveness. When facing life's storms, only resilience and faith in humanity's worth can lift us to paint hope across tomorrow's sky. If Charlotte's story inspires you, please subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and share this video with your family and friends in the United States. We'd love to know where and when you're watching. Every share spreads love and steadfast belief across the world.